As you know, Michelle and I recently took what we call the epic road trip, and we traveled numerous states across the central United States, from Michigan all the way to Arizona and back. But we did a lot of preparation and a lot of different things to make sure this trip went well, and we'd like to share some of this preparation with you. Since this is basically a photography channel, obviously one of the most important things that we took with us was the camera gear. I took my Fujifilm camera, which I'd show you, but it's filming us right now. That's what I'm using. There it is. But I packed everything up in this very simple low pro bag that I have, how everything went. And I took, of course, the Fujifilm 18 to 55 millimeter lens, which is an absolutely stellar lens. I did take with me a portrait lens. I took, you know I have this love for vintage lenses, and this is a Minolta Rocker 55 millimeter lens that I took with me, and I've had it in a couple other videos. In fact, I'll link one right here where I did the Bokeh Corral lens shootout. I thought I'd do some portraiture there, and we actually never used this lens. I did take with also my Lens Baby Sol 45 lens. I had this with us, and I did do a couple shots at the Monument Rocks. That's where I used this. I did a couple shots there with the Lens Baby lens. And another lens that I took just as kind of a last minute whim, it came my way just before we left, and that is this vintage 135 millimeter lens with a Minolta mount. So I used my Minolta adapter on this to the Fujifilm camera, and we actually did some very nice photographs with this, both at the Grand Canyon when we did the Flagstaff link, of our trip, that leg of our trip, and also in Phoenix, Arizona, of the balloons. Worked out really well. Those shots in Phoenix of the balloons was the first time I had ever done any photographs with this lens, and I was really happy with the results of that. That's basically the photography gear that I took with us for the trip. And then of course we did have to vlog as well while we were doing this. You're being awfully quiet. We vlogged as well, and as most of you know, I do most of my vlogging with my cell phone, with my iPhone. So of course we had that, and I would often have that mounted on the flexible tripod, this TechElks tripod that I picked up. That works out really well. I also, just before the trip, grabbed a used GoPro, this Hero 3 Plus, picked it up for next to nothing on eBay, and yeah, that was really a good deal. And because I want to do some stuff, and one of the things I did, I used the waterproof housing, not this housing that I have on here now, but I did use this magnet mount and mounted it to the vehicle for quite a bit of moving photography. We also did some shots in the car with the GoPro as well. It worked out really well as an in-mount camera along with the iPhone. Of course, also packed in all the various sundry bags were all sorts of cables, battery chargers. I even packed a couple of spare batteries. These batteries, just like this, that I have the USB. I had a couple of these with me so that we could do charging in the field if anything ran out of any of the batteries, because everything takes battery power, from the microphones to the cameras to the cell phones, everything. And all that worked out great. But the one thing I forgot, and this is because I didn't make a list, unlike Michelle, who's a great list maker, was any kind of charging bricks. So I had no bricks to plug into the wall. We ended up grabbing one thing while on the road. I've got it plugged in over here. Let me go grab that real quick. I found this, and what a deal. Since I had forgotten to bring the charging brick, I got thinking about what would be ideal for a travel charging device to carry, and I was thinking I would get a plug strip, and we'd be able to plug some different of the charging bricks for the different types of things in there. And then I found this guy, and he's actually available on Amazon. He's what, about 30 bucks for this, and it's got 4 of the high-speed USB connections plus 2 outlets, plugs into a single outlet, and this would charge everything we have. In fact, I like this so much, I have it plugged into the wall in the home studio where we're sitting right now, and I use it to plug all and charge all the devices. So it's ready to go at any time. The next time we do a road trip, when are we doing a road trip again?
I don't know.
I don't know either. So
Soon, I hope.
hopefully soon. That is the hope. We knew we were taking a trip to Phoenix, Arizona, and since we decided we would drive, we thought, why not make stops along the way and make it just a road trip? Michelle and I haven't been away together like this since shortly after we were married, and that was, what, 100 years ago?
28.
28 years ago, she says. We have to take her word on that, right? Isn't that how that works? So in about 28 years, we had never done, just the two of us, a long road trip like this. So we laid everything out, and part of the idea was 8 hours between each stop. Any longer than that, we start having to do a lot of driving at night, or you're spending all your time in a car. And part of what we wanted to be sure is that we got to see some sights and events. So we put together a map. Can you hand me the notebook here? So we put together, and you've seen it on some of the other videos, a map of our trip and all where we're going to go, and then started laying out, and I started doing some research onto different places we could go and photograph. And we started putting this together. And one of the things that we needed to do in this, because you were told someone by a friend, weren't you? Mm-hmm. About what?
Yeah, make sure that you print your maps off and directions for each place, because there's not internet service everywhere.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and we ran into that a couple times, right, where the internet wasn't there. And some people, you can download Google Maps onto your phone or whatever, but we decided to put together a notebook of everywhere we were going to go. So in this, we had the directions from and to each one of our stops printed out. I used, I think it was Google Maps to do all that. And so in here we had, you know, where we start and where we end up, and then it also would have the turn-by-turn directions of how to get everywhere. I also put in here our reservations. Almost every place we stayed was an Airbnb. So we put in all the reservation information of each Airbnb that we were going to be. So we'd have the confirmation on here, the order numbers would be on there, where we're going to be, all the check-in information necessary. So we had everything in one binder. And that worked out really, really well, that we could carry with us in case anything went tremendously wrong. I've already mentioned that I forgot any charging bricks, and that's because I'm a real kind of fly by the seat of your pants person, and I'm not the best planner in the world.
Well, you planned the whole trip. You planned the route.
I did plan the route. I did plan the route, but it's
where
we're staying and all that. So I guess some of those things I do okay at. And but making the lists and the checklists, I figure I can always keep it in my head. But obviously some stuff falls out of my head if I forgot all the charging bricks. But Michelle did a tremendous job making up a list of everything that we needed.
Yep, I made a checklist for the things that would go mostly in the car, and then I made a checklist for what clothing I was going to take, and then things to do before we left. And so yeah, the checklist for the things that go in the car, I made sure that everything was in the car.
Well, what kind of stuff did you make sure we had? Like, is it like for the trip and for the car?
Flares.
Like stuff for outfits, a little flare.
No.
They burn real bright, then they have the really sharp point. You stick them in the pavement, and it makes sure that people don't crash into you. So we got a few different flares.
Wipes.
Sanitary wipes, got to have those.
Gloves.
Just in case. You never know when you need to do some surgery.
Well, for gas stations, the pumps and...
That's true.
Yeah, and then windshield wiper fluid refill.
Made sure we had a spare the windshield wiper fluid.
An umbrella.
An umbrella for...
In case it rains.
I'm sorry, for those of you, a bumper chute.
A what?
Bumbershoot. For our friends in the UK. It's a bumbershoot.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Oh, there.
Now I do.
I hope I'm right on that.
Duck. Because it was very hot some of the places we were.
Yep. And these double as photoreflectors too.
Ooh.
Look.
Ooh.
Look at
that.
Yeah.
First aid kit.
First aid kit.
Make sure that everything is in it. Band-aids and Band-aids and more Band-aids and alcohol pads. So, yep, make sure that it is all together before you go. Windshield repair kit.
Now, why did we have that?
Well, I watched a vlog before we went. I watched several vlogs about how to do a road trip.
Wait a minute. You used YouTube to do some research before we went?
They recommended, because if you get a chip that hits your windshield while you're traveling on the road, it could snake and run. And so this was really handy to have. We didn't have to use it, but we had it in case.
By the way, almost nothing that we showed you did we have to use. But it was about peace of mind,
Yeah.
right? So it's about making sure that if anything were to go wrong, that you're prepared for that. And because then things just go a little bit wrong. If you don't have what you need, then things go disastrously wrong, like forgetting charging bricks.
Hand warmers.
Hand warmers?
Those were essential. We used them a lot in the cold temperatures, in our pockets and in our gloves. And
Yeah, because a couple places was really, really cold. That's part of the deal. Because of the length of time that we were gone and in the season we were gone, we had temperatures anywhere from probably the 20s. So, and again, these are Fahrenheit temperatures. So from the 20s to the mid 80s, I think it was the highest in Phoenix. Everything in between. And some areas you wouldn't expect cold temperatures or snow to be, we ran into. So we drove through snow a couple of times when we were traveling.
sunscreen, of course, for when it's warm. Bug spray. Spot remover. And we had a small laundry soap, and dish soap too was a handy thing to have.
And what else?
And jumper cables.
Jumper cables.
Very important.
Which, most importantly, we never had to use. That was the best part.
Yeah. Now, of course, food.
Food.
Food, which
Absolutely
is my
food.
favorite part of the whole trip of planning and, of course, eating and packing and making. And so you have to have a cooler. This is the size we brought. It was perfect. It wasn't too big and it wasn't too small. We packed 2 bins like this. One had the dried food in it. And then this one had things that we needed close by or that were handy. I had these in the back seat right behind our 2 seats, and so I could access them and reach them quickly and easily. So yeah, so there's just like, these were great for our sandwiches, and anytime we had food to eat, they were nice and handy to be able to put the food in. Of course, salt and pepper, wipes, tissues, hand sanitizer.
Lots of hand sanitizer.
Lots. Plastic utensils were really handy to have because we were not stopping much. We really just did it on the road. Ziplocs, of course, paper towel. Paper towel was very important. Yep. All right, now the food. You want to just toss that over there?
Yep.
Okay, don't toss it.
All right.
Okay.
More.
So the food is my favorite part. So we did bought a 3-pound package of bacon at Sam's Club. I think we got it was either this one or the right bacon.
It was a different brand.
But this is the idea. We fried it all up, baked it in the oven. Jim baked it in the oven. And then we had it in a Ziploc bag. So that was a really handy snack for mornings or even midday. And then I boiled a bunch of eggs and we peeled them and they were ready to go. Something I would do different, I put them in a Ziploc bag in the cooler and they got squished. Yeah.
A little bit, a couple of them. Not pancake,
No.
not like that, but they were kind of misshapen a little bit.
So next time, I would
Next
put
time.
them in a hard case or a container that would not allow them to get smooshed. Some of our dry snacks, we found this. We eat keto, as you can see on the package. Sam's Club, again, this was great. It's two different,
Just a little bit higher.
yeah, two different.
It looks like we're eating now to me. This is totally unplanned.
There were two, yeah, let's try them right now. No, we had them on the trip and they're really great. Two different choices, and this was like $12.98, I think, for the whole thing, and filling, they were filling. We also had Dukes. These are also really good and low in carb and very tasty. And
These are really good. These are really
I can't
good.
remember. These were about $11 for the whole thing, and there's 3 individual packages separate in there. Took a bunch of these keto fat bombs. They're,
Hopefully we can zoom in on those a little bit.
Yeah.
They're like Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah.
But not as sweet, and so they're really, really good.
yep.
Really handy.
And then I just bought like a big package of pecans and split them into little baggies so they're easy to grab and easy to munch. But last but not least,
Last but not least,
chocolate.
that bag is empty.
Uh-huh. It's really good.
This stuff is really good. I think she ate it all. Yeah.
Don't tell the cats.
Yeah. Don't tell the cats. The cats don't want the chocolate. They want the meat sticks and they want the bacon. Now, one of the things you talked about food that we ate on the road, Michelle came up with and made these incredible wraps that were really, really easy to make and really nice to eat. And what would you do? You take a piece of lettuce, but you'd use, what kind of lettuce was it?
It was head lettuce because there were nice big leaves and kind of already curling.
Right.
And then lunch meat, we had turkey and chicken, and then sliced cheese. And so I would and mustard and mayonnaise. And so those kinds of things were in the cooler. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're really handy. We had the cooler set up. We figured out that it worked out really well for pretty much most of the time for me to drive. This is our situation. I'm not saying this works for everybody, but for us, it worked really good for me to drive. And then because she's smaller than I am, and so she could turn and maneuver a little better. So she could grab the food out of the one Tupperware bin or the big Rubbermaid bin, the green one, and then also out of the cooler. We had these things positioned right behind the seats, the front seats in the Jeep. We had folded the back seats flat, so it was just a big cargo area, and she could reach everything and then make the sandwiches for us and do the roll-ups and hand them, and we could eat them while we were driving and felt very, very safe. And that we didn't have to stop for fast food. Saved us a lot of money that way, a lot of money, and they were absolutely delicious. It worked out really, really well.
And we had celery with cream cheese in them too. And also I found a keto recipe to make crackers, cheddar crackers, and I made those beforehand. So we had those in the dried food too. So anyway, yeah. We ate good.
We ate really good. And so for us, what's really important is very, very little processed food. Even though you saw those Duke's meat sticks, they're about the least processed meat that I've been able to find anywhere, as far as like some kind of a beef stick or something along the lines of a beef jerky that's really tasty, very handy, and low carb, which is very important to us, and very, very little ingredients and no sugar in those at all. Again, very, very important to us. Obviously, of course, one of the things you want to be sure of is that your car is in good shape if you're going to make this kind of trip. And we were, what was it, 3,500, 3,700 miles was our full trip. That's a lot. It's a lot of driving. So we made sure the oil was changed. Another odd thing with us that had happened is our vehicle had wheel locks on it, I guess so people can't steal your wheels. And that's not a big thing where we live. We live in a pretty rural area. But one of the problems we had with this is it takes a special wrench to get them off, and then our lug nuts had rusted on on the Jeep, and it's not that old of a vehicle. I was kind of surprised. So they couldn't get it off. So we had to actually take it to the dealership. They had to drill them off. That was quite expensive, and get those off, and then we had them rotate the tires too, all at the same time before we left. But it was while that was expensive, it was considerably cheaper than if we would have blown a tire on the road and no one could get the tires off the car, or the wheels off the car.
That would be a bad
That
scenario.
would have been a really bad thing. So
on the road.
Check, if you're going to do any kind of a road trip, check your car, make sure your oil is changed, all your fluids are filled, have a mechanic go over it to make sure everything is good, and the little things, which can turn into very big things, like making sure that you can change your tires. Make sure that whatever kind of spare you have is in good shape. All about being prepared if something goes wrong, and then seems like if you're prepared for something to go wrong, things don't go wrong. It works out really, really well. Clothing, we haven't talked about clothing. Because we drove through so many different climates, our basic thing is that we want to make sure we had layers. So we had a number of light layers that we could put on or take off. And in fact, in one of the videos, we start out in coats and sweaters and turtlenecks. And by the end of the video, the only thing we have left on is the turtleneck, because we've stripped everything else off, and even that became a little bit warm.
Yeah.
So layering, I think, is very, very important in your clothing. Just make sure of all the climates and prepare for everything. We did pack probably a few things that we shouldn't have packed or that we took. So what are some things that we would do differently, Michelle, do you think, next time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was there were a couple items that were in the car. It certainly didn't take up that much room, but we never used them, and they really are not something I would take next time. And that would be a clothes steamer. We pretty much all the Airbnbs where we stayed, they had irons or they had washing machines, so we had the ability to take care of our clothing that way. Actually a clothing shaver I took also, and we didn't use that at all. Pretty much stayed in the car. So we didn't have time for that. We were busy seeing sights and traveling and eating. So
Speaking of that, Button's starting to go after the bacon.
oh no.
He hasn't bit it yet.
Yep. I should say we have a problem. I can't
Yeah.
I can't do the rest of the vlog because the cat is on the container.
Yeah, the cats try to help us all they can to do everything. So
I'm sure he smells the bacon that's in there.
I'm sure he does smell the bacon. I would like to be cooking the bacon. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Another thing that I said early on that we tried to do is make sure each leg of our trip was about 8 hours. Unfortunately, the way two of the legs worked out, or from point A to point B, is we had one drive that turned out to be about 11 hours, and that was brutal. And what really made it especially brutal is that's the morning we left. We went from Flagstaff, Arizona, a little north of Flagstaff, after being at the Grand Canyon, all the way to Colorado Springs. And just the way the route got us, we had to backtrack a lot, but that really wasn't such a big deal. But it was that morning that I got up at 3 a.m. I got up at 3 a.m. to photograph the Milky Way, and hoped that I'd be able to do that anyway. But it was 100% cloud cover, and that never worked out at all. So I had been up since 3 and then had been driving, and it just became really brutal. Snowstorm. We left Flagstaff, but it was beautiful. It was a beautiful snowstorm, and then we skirted a major snowstorm. And how much snow did New Mexico get hit with? Was it like
2 feet?
2 feet or something? And it was right behind us. We were right on the edge of the snowstorm all the way through. If we had left about 30 minutes after we did, we would have been in it and not been able to get to Colorado Springs. We would have spent a night probably in the car somewhere and been stranded on the highway, and that would have been a bad thing.
We would have had flares.
We would have had flares, but I don't think that would have kept us real warm.
No.
So to recap, all in all, about the trip, we had a great time, an absolutely great time. And I got to think a lot of people right now, with the situation, with all the lockdowns and everything that's going on, from the unnamed situation that's happening in the world, that people are really needing to go out and experience. go out and experience life. And we're really fortunate that we were able to do this and able to do this safely. We made sure we took every safety precaution we could through the whole thing, not only in making sure that the vehicle was good, we were also prepared to keep our own personal selves safe through the entire trip. And of course, I recommend that for any of you. Another thing that we needed to make sure of is that these guys were going to be cared for. So we're really fortunate. We have a neighbor, some great neighbors who were able to come in and feed both of our cats every day. This is the one that doesn't like people, and she did good. I think she only bit them once. So the other one seems to really like people, and so he did much better.
Your star.
Arrange for pet care to be certain that they are well cared for while you're gone. I think that's about going to wrap us up on this preparation video, everything that we did and the experiences that we had. If you haven't seen any of these travel vlogs, take a moment. I'll put a link to the entire playlist right here of all the travel logs that Michelle and I have done. And we just try to go out and have a good time. Some of them are that I can't talk. Some of them are, most of them actually are photography based, and so they're going to be about doing photographs and exploring areas for photographs. But some are simply about the travel. Sometimes we weren't able to really create any photographs of anything. She is totally trying to steal the spotlight here through this whole thing. The cats really can't figure out this whole studio thing and what's going on. They're fascinated by the shiny things that are in here and the lights and what's going on. And they come in here often to help me get things set up and prepared. But
hopefully we were able to give you some good tips too on how to prepare for your next trip.
Yeah, highly recommend it. As always, I'm James Fisher. This is Michelle, and this is
The wife.
The wife. That's right. She's Jim and wife.
Yeah.
So Jim and wife. But this is Vintage Illumination Photography. As always, thanks for watching, and thanks so much for your support.
Bye.